It has been almost 2 years since Halo Infinite launched. It has been 2 years since the first public beta, which I participated in. I, like many others, was very excited for the next Halo. Things ended up happening, and that would be the last Halo Infinite I would have for 2 years. As time went on, negative press around the game built up. Despite staying spoiler free, as the months went on, I became less and less excited to play. But I acquired a new laptop recently, and I had already purchased a campaign, so now I can finally formulate my thoughts on this latest entry. Let me get this out of the way. I believe that Infinite is second to MCC as 343's finest achievement. That's not saying much, but in terms of game design, it mogs Halo 4 and 5. Also not saying much. I don't think Halo Infinite is bad, but I also don't believe it's great. I would use the word decent. Yeah, decent. Infinite could have been another part of 343's redemption story if it didn't fall into so many black-pilling circumstances, such as the complete failure the live service was for the first year and a half. Anyways, let me talk about what I thought about the campaign first, as that's what I was waiting 2 years to finally experience. Right, I probably shouldn't be drinking lemonade and recording this at the same time. This campaign has a lot of missed potential. I look forward to the day mod tools come out for this game, just like with the MCC, and we can play some custom levels that take full advantage of the foundation 343 laid down. But let me talk about the good first. Something that 343 really exceeded my expectations with. The AI. The Banished feel amazing to fight, just like their Bungie Covenant counterparts, and most unlike the Storm faction or Prometheans. Everything from their dialogue to their behavior on the battlefield and animations makes it feel so immersive and brings back that classic dance that we all know and love. However, I do have some criticisms. The first of mine are hit scanners. Hit scanners are never fun to fight. They completely halt the dance and force you to take cover. Brutes and skimmers are the worst offenders, often found with commandos and shock rifles. This carries over to my next point. Enemies engage you from crazy distances. This is, of course, the fault of the open world. A third gripe I have: why on earth can't I backsmack elites? It works in every other Halo game. Why not here? Change for the sake of change. A final critical observation: boss fights really do not need to be in this game. Even Bungie couldn't get them to work. There's a reason for that. The consistency and sandbox of Halo doesn't lend itself well to bosses. I wouldn't have minded a few of them, but they went overboard with them. But don't get me wrong, I love the AI in this game. If that sounded overly critical, then buckle up, because there will only be more scrutiny. Let's get into the first big missed opportunity: the sandbox. 343 must have looked at Halo CE and saw the praise it received. Then they observed the most superficial thing about it, the small weapon roster, and decided to implement it into Halo Infinite. As you would expect, such a one-dimensional analysis would lead to a very flat-feeling weapon roster. For example, compare the CE plasma rifle to the pulse carbine. Both are supposed to fulfill a similar role. Whenever I replay CE, I regularly pick up plasma rifles due to their sheer utility. The ability to stun elites makes it a great secondary when I know I'll be encountering a good number of them. Meanwhile, in Infinite, I would only use the pulse carbine over two other weapons, the plasma pistol and the disruptor. Between the useless projectile tracking behavior, unnecessary burst fire, and a lack of noticeable stun, there's no reason to carry the pulse carbine over something like the Mangler. which shoots well, has great DPS, and it's plentiful in the campaign. And for whatever strange reason, 343 must have forgotten it to nerf it against shields, elite shields, because it's probably the best weapon to strip their shields with, which is kind of ridiculous. And it's just plentiful in the campaign, it's everywhere. Other weapons that suffer a similar issue are the assault rifle and battle rifle. The VK78 is simply superior to both in every way except ammo capacity. And the last example is the stalker rifle and mangler. They could have simply been one weapon instead. I thought 343 was trying to end sandbox redundancy. Imagine how badass a spike sniper would have been instead. The limited weapon pool also brings in another problem. The fact that the banished are using human weapons, which aren't meant to be used by AI. Rocket Flood and Shotgun Brutes are no fun because of this. CE didn't do this, with the exception of Flood of course. And Infinite didn't have to do this at all. There are too many human weapons in Infinite that could have simply been for the banished instead. Take the Hydra for example, easily could have just been a brute shot. Or the Commando, could have simply been a carbine, just like that one variant from Halo 5. I will say though, throwable fusion coils are a great addition. The return of equipment is quite welcome. In multiplayer, it's just like Halo 3 with limited map pickups. In campaign, however, it's quite a different story. First of all, the player has 4 pieces of equipment available at all times, once unlocked. Grapple, threat sensor, drop wall, and thrusters. As you would expect, the grapple shot is the main star of the show, but the other 3 equipment do have their utility, and you will find yourself cycling between all of them, so good on 343 for that. However, equipment does feel like a crutch in some situations, made even worse by the fact you have unlimited uses. The equipment also feels quite one-sided, which is pretty contrary to Halo 3. Not only does equipment just benefit the user of it, but the AI do not utilize it at all. Big missed opportunity. Brutes can throw stuff at the player, so why not further augment their capability by giving them equipment? A unit like these skewer snipers would certainly benefit from a drop wall. I even died to a skewer once, on foot. They're just too easy to evade and neutralize. Giving these units a drop wall will force you to improvise. Depending on the situation, you might want to make a hole in the drop wall and take out the sniper before he steps out of the way. You might just want to destroy the drop wall itself. You might want to get an explosive behind the drop wall and have it kill the brute. Or you just might want to flank the old-fashioned way. This is just one example of how giving AI equipment would make them much more dynamic. Now, I would say the lowest point of Infinite Sandbox are the vehicles, without a shadow of a doubt. They fucking suck. I genuinely don't understand how they were allowed to release the game with the vehicles in this state. It is horrendous. I actively avoid vehicle play. It's not worth it at all. Wheeled vehicles such as the Mongoose and Warthog feel light as a feather, way too prone to randomly flipping over. Steering feels way too loose, and they have the same durability as a napkin. All vehicles in this game are just made out of paper. The paper planes I made in 3rd and 4th grade could go through more of a beating, honestly, than these vehicles in this game. The Banshee has the world's worst controls. I do not understand how it was like, oh wow, the Banshee is just... How? It's just confusion, really, the way I feel about these vehicles, right? I honestly don't know what to say. I mean, the only thing I can really say about these vehicles is they just suck ass, simply. The sandbox falls rather short. If I could describe it in one word, it would be clean. Everything is too one-dimensional and lacks character. Features that give Halo its soul, for example, explosion knockback, have been just scrubbed out. The game feels very sterile, like a neutered dog. No potency at all, and it really shows because it's hard to do just fun, goofy, gimmicky shit on this game. It really is. I could talk for hours on this topic. Perhaps I'll make more videos specifically on certain elements of Infinite Sandbox and their shortcomings. Not making any promises though. Yeah. It's already hard enough making one video, believe it or not. I'm going to make an update video explaining my situation and how I feel about making YouTube videos, so look out for that. The level design is something I have split feelings on. The interior linear sections of this game are pretty good, with well-crafted arenas and thoughtful enemy placement. On the other hand, the open world is quite mediocre and is simply just bloat in my opinion. I'll cover the main missions first as they happen to be mostly linear. I'll also cover the narrative events and what I think of the gameplay each level provides. Then I'll come back and discuss the rest of the ring.
Would you humor me?
The game opens up with a cutscene depicting the UNSC, the Infinity, and the Master Chief himself being defeated by Atriox and is banished. I really enjoy this. The Reclaimer saga put way too much power into the hands of the human race for my taste, and it's great to see that humanity is on the back foot once again.
My name is Atriox, and I am the last face you will ever see.
Chief is stuck floating in space for half a year until a UNSC pilot finds him. It is interesting that 343 brought the green light aim gimmick back from the original trilogy. A quick tangent. I do think this is nostalgia bait. The reason the original trilogy had the aiming lights was because Halo was the market trailblazer at the time. Besides GoldenEye and some shitty ports of PC shooters, console FPS was pretty much non-existent. So of course you had to familiarize players with how to use a controller for this genre of game. How about 20 years later? Not really. Another piece of nostalgia bait immediately follows.
No, not then. Not again. We need to run.
I need a weapon.
Weapon. This is all I've got.
It's enough.
The original line from Discover Hope is much better, since it emphasizes that the two are in it together. You then take the fight to the Banished on the Ghost of Gabrakan, which this level is aptly named after. The beginning cinematics for this game still gives me chills, even after replaying it several times. During your whole stay on this ship, you don't fight a single elite, allowing you to get acquainted with the brutes who haven't been in a Halo FPS for a decade. There are 3 parts of this level: the fight to the bridge, the ship's bridge, and your escape. The fight to the bridge in terms of level design feels like Crow's Nest from Halo 3. You could say it takes inspiration from Pillar of Autumn, which it probably does, but this one room with its 2 levels of elevation is what reminded me of Crow's Nest specifically. The bridge is a wide open arena following your standard 3-lane convention. Your brief stay is pretty fun. Anyways,
Train go boom.
and you have to make your escape. This parkour section reminds me of that one section from Titanfall 2. I'll put some footage of it up right now. Is it a gimmicky way to end the level? Yes, but I don't really mind. Warship Gabrakan serves its purpose as an introductory mission. Foundation is the next level. It exposes us to the new Forerunner art style, elites, shock weapons, and hardlight. A new method of environmental storytelling is also showcased in this mission, data clusters, found in the lower parts of the ring in both visual and audio forms. You eventually complete your first objective, which is locating a new AI. It is never really stated that you were looking for one, so I can see how this would be confusing to someone who hasn't seen the marketing for this title. The weapon has quite a different personality from Cortana, and you can tell right off the bat. Cortana was really confident and in the know, while the weapon is quite the naive thing. An analogy would be that Cortana is more of a wise motherly figure who protects you, while the weapon is a young daughter you must watch over. As you are making your way back up to the surface, you come across the Power Seed gimmick. It ends up becoming really repetitive after a few times, but there are instances where I appreciate it as it gives the devs an excuse to do something cool with the fact that the player has to look for something, such as put the seed in a cool arena you have to fight in. This level has no examples of such, however, but it has many different styles of combat arenas, with unique layouts and some with verticality. You find a dead Spartan in this level, which you get a shield enhancement from. The weapon spoils this, of course, by telling you there's a dead Spartan even before the dead Spartan enters your line of sight. This would have been a more impactful moment if the weapon had held her tongue until you stumbled upon it yourself. This mission ends with your first boss fight against a jetpack brute named Tremonius. He's not difficult to handle, but I don't feel like he adds anything of value to this game, a ubiquitous theme with these bosses. The defeat of Tremonius leads right into Outpost Tremonius, the next mission. This is where the game opens up, for better or for worse. You make it up to the surface. Your objective is to liberate the outpost and make it your own. However, you can go the other way and do a bit of exploration. There is a loot cave with a Spec Ops elite hiding inside. You can also visit the very top of the mountain range that overlooks Outpost Tremonius. Something I noticed immediately with the open world is that my frame rate immediately got halved from 120 and plus down to around 60 FPS. Outpost Tremonius is a very short level you can beat easily in 3 minutes. When you finish the level, you are introduced to the mechanics of the open world, giving you the fob you just captured. You also witness the dynamic between Chief, the weapon, and the pilot form. It is interesting to see how Master Chief's stoicism, the weapon's innocent and playful nature, and the fear-stricken pilot all contrast with each other. Before you start the next main mission, you're dropped off at a nearby fob, so you might as well capture it. Then you can make your way to the appropriately named tower. Given that this is an open world mission, you can approach the tower from any angle. Your first task is to clear out the troops beneath it so that you can activate the grav lift. The gameplay in this section is quite meh. There are 2 snipers towards one end of the arena, and since they are so highly elevated, there's not much cover from them. Captured Marines are present and you can free them. After some banished reinforcements come along, you can finally enter the tower itself. The first thing you see is Spartan armor lying around, and with it there's a threat sensor, which comes in handy for the rest of the mission. As you travel up the structure to save the Spartan, it gets foggier. Once you make it up to the top, you find the Spartan being tortured, along with the culprit, Chad Locke, the first elite boss. Very annoying, honestly. You kill him and then free the Spartan, who doesn't even make it anyways. And the level ends like that. But you can find the I would have been your daddy skull at the very top of the tower. Next mission is Excavation Site, but that's a long way from the tower, giving you quite a few opportunities to tackle open world shenanigans as you travel the distance. Excavation Site is the first part of the game that features non-linear objectives that you can tackle in any order you want. 2 regulators that expose 2 pylons each you need to destroy. You can hit both switches first and then come back to destroy all 4 pylons, or you can do 1 regulator and then destroy 1 set of pylons, and then you can move on to the next regulator. After that, you go back to disable the drill, but you get jump scared by a chieftain. A chieftain that so happens to be a boss as well. Yay! Once you are done with him, you head back down into the ring for the next mission. The Conservatory is a much appreciated return to linearity, and it does something that was part of Bungie's level design philosophy as pointed out by Ben Plays Games.
The next few encounters you fight your way through have that lovely open to narrow ebb and flow that Bungie has always done so wonderfully. You fight the Covenant below the ramp in an open area, then take on more in a narrow section, before meeting the Hunters in an area which is again very spacious.
This level does just that, alternating between more open arenas and tight confined ones. Eventually you discover 2 new entities, a monitor and a new type of foe. I will say, I feel the skimmers are the least annoying flying enemy in Halo. As you make your descent, the open to narrow philosophy is ditched in favor of copy and pasting this passage for quite a bit. There are windows in the corridors where you can see the Milky Way and floating bits of Forerunner alloy in the vacuum of space. A lovely skybox. This game has, and 343 in general, make some very high quality skyboxes, I'll give them that. Once you're finished with this very long hallway, you get to fight the skimmers for the first time, showing you just how awful hit scanners are in case you didn't already know. At least it is good that you fight them in a wide open arena, allowing you to get acquainted with the new enemy while having plenty of breathing room. After an encounter with 2 chieftains, this level ends with you meeting the Harbinger. As a character, she is completely uninteresting. She just comes off as a contrarian asshole. Throughout the game, she has no character development, just me big mad at the Forerunners, me hate them, wah. Anyways, a spire is near and is the focal point of the next mission. At the grav lift below it, you can find the first hunters of the game. These hunters, as outlined in Late Night Gaming's The Evolution of the Hunters video, don't perform their typical bull run with the player. You cannot melee bait them because their AI is simply too stationary. Sometimes I would perform a maneuver thinking I had just gotten behind the hunter and ready to dish some damage, just to realize the hunter was looking right in my eyes. They aren't difficult or anything, just quite different from the hunter we're all used to. You find a new monitor and walk around for a bit. Then you end up with a boss battle. Not particularly interesting. It's a short nothing burger of a level. The ending cutscene is cool, I guess, but the music that plays in retail made me do a double take. A quick comparison.
fractured world will put Spartan 117 to the ultimate test. But where there is courage, there is hope. Welcome to the new era of Halo.
The song is called Test of Metal, and I would have preferred that over the Warthog Run in this particular instance. I feel like the Warthog Run is overused in this game. However, whatever disappointment I felt quickly evaporated when I realized that this section was immediately followed by the mission shown off in the E3 2020 demo. I was excited to explore that area, and even more happy when the level reminded me that this was a non-linear level, just like the second half of Halo in Combat Evolved. It is easily the best the open world has to offer. The 3 anti-air guns vary slightly in layout. You can flank and travel to each objective in so many ways. As you tackle each objective, Escharum taunts you. It is quite the fun level, but it ends in the most unfun way. Another boss battle, or boss battles, or bosses battles, whatever. But trust me, it's totally different this time because they are called Spartan Killers. Ooh, scary. This mission closes with a cutscene that provides plenty of character insight. For starters, the pilot isn't actually an enlisted member of the UNSC, which explains his behavior. The Master Chief steps up as a sort of mentor here, a battle-hardened veteran who reassures the pilot and gives him a word of encouragement. A nice human touch to the Master Chief done well.
It's all we need. Our only way home is straight through the heart of the Banished.
We need you.
We can fix this.
Together.
Of course we can. Together.
This next mission is an example of what a bad non-linear level is. It is tedious to say the least. I feel like its only purpose is to force the player to explore the open world more by putting these objectives several real-world kilometers apart from each other. Here's the whole thing at times 64 if you wanted to see. The next actual level has you exploring the underbelly of another spire. I am telling you, these enclosed linear levels only get more and more fun. In this level, there are two elements borrowed directly from Halo 2. Firstly, after you defeat this hunter pair, you travel down a shaft similar to the one seen in Sacred Icon. The other element is the gondola from Regret. Another thing I feel that was inspired by Halo 2 is this arena. Reminds me of the space you fight the hunters on Regret. 3 lanes, 3 different levels of elevation. Fast forward back to the gondola section. You fight sentinels during the level's ending, and the narrative continues to evolve here. Trust issues between the Master Chief and the weapon. You make your ascent into the command spire, where the linear level design continues. What can I say? It is good stuff. One small criticism I have is that most linear sections take place in enclosed foreigner facilities, resulting in a lack of visual variety. The Halo series is no stranger to mixing environments up, from the tight interiors of starships, the holy city of the Covenant, ancient temples, outdated military bases, and even mining colonies. But for there to be no diversity in Infinite is quite an eyesore after some time. You fight a good amount of sentinels, just like the last level, but unlike the Nexus, they are sprinkled in with the Banished, giving them more depth than if they were to be just fighting solo. It is all really solid until you fight that monitor from the first spire again. Even though the boss isn't difficult or that annoying, it still has a bad effect on level pacing, grinding the game to a halt. Once you deal with him, again, you have to take on 2 phantoms. The phantoms feel really static, and this fight would have been more interesting if, say, these phantoms would drop off troops if you didn't deal with them fast enough. The events that occur in the ending cutscene sets up the last act of the game. The pilot gets kidnapped by one of Escharam's goons, and you have to rescue him no matter who stands in the way. A good amount of Foundation's level geometry is reused for the beginning of the repository. Not much happens during it, so I'm not gonna complain. The rest of this level is not just solid from a gameplay perspective, but narratively as well. A section that I really like is one where you have to find a pair of power seeds to activate a gravity lift. Particularly the teleporters near the power seeds. You can send items through them, which is really cool, and I love seeing things like that in games. It makes the environment feel alive and have purpose. The fights with the chieftains are pretty fun here. From the beginning, you'll know you'll fight Escharum, and as the level progresses, you learn more about just how crazy Cortana was. And the weapon eventually figures out that she's a clone of Cortana, which is incredibly ironic because in Halo 4, Cortana predicted this exact situation.
They'll pair you with another AI. Maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them.
That's not going to happen.
It won't be me.
A bit awkward, no? The road to the return of mediocrity. Horrible vehicles, plus the fact that the useless Marines can't drive vehicles, and the road you travel on is quite dull and restrictive. I can see that not much time, effort, or care was given to this mission. Compare this to another transport mission from the series, Tazavo Highway. Both of these levels are meaningless in the grand scheme of their respective campaigns. They serve the purpose of getting you from point A to point B. But Bungie decided to meet the creative challenges such a mission imposed and crafted a really fun safari joyride out of a nothing burger. Because although Highway is really open and gives the player a sense of scale, it feels like you're actually going places. Meanwhile, in Infinite, the House of Reckoning is maybe 1 or 2 clicks away at the most. In order to make this feel like a mighty trip, you are funneled through a narrow valley while enemies await to deal damage to your origami vehicle if you get too close. It quickly devolves into a shooting gallery, but from a vehicle's turret. Once you make it to the first gate, there's no point lowering it for your Warthog or Scorpion because it's not making it past that point. Not much to say about this level after this point. You lower a bridge and enter the House of Reckoning. I really dig the aesthetic of this level, with UNSC equipment being salvaged and made into mini combat arenas. It's a really cool concept. The first 2 combat arenas you fight your typical infantry. Very fun. I cannot wait to see it become a firefight map in Season 5. The third is a hull of some sort of UNSC ship or mini base, I can't tell honestly. Its interior is very dark and you finally get to meet Jaga himself. His presentation is fucking amazing. The voice filter used sounds sickly and menacing. It kinda gives me chills, not gonna lie. It is really unfortunate that we haven't had any real character development for him. Honestly, the only character development there is in this game is for the weapon and the pilot. There simply isn't enough screen time for anyone else. A damn shame. However, the actual boss fight wasn't as good. Same pitfall as the other elite bosses. Running away in circles is not a very fun gameplay loop. I did end up finding a good method of taking him out. Get him near a set of shock coils and detonate them. He'll be stunned for several seconds and give you an opportunity to dish massive amounts of damage, potentially slaying him in one go. After that, you go and save the pilot, but of course, there's another boss battle. I will say, Escharum is the best boss in the game, and it would have been very disappointing if he was not. But I do feel like he's a little too easy. I don't want him to be annoying or unfair like some of the other bosses, but I wanted the fight to have been more tense because Escharum does seem like a pushover. Perhaps if he traded some of his bullet sponginess for aggression. You might think you dealt a killing blow to the banished forces on Zeta Halo, but it's not over yet. Yeah, even the boss fights. This level is chock full of data clusters that tell the story of Cortana's death. We learned that Cortana sacrificed herself, again, to destroy the ring and prevent giving the deadly asset to the banished. I'm pretty sure that the first half of this level reuses much of the geometry from earlier interior Forerunner sections, mix-mashing these assets. It is certainly an interesting concept. What about the second half of the level, you might ask? Well, you get to meet the Harbinger again. Worst boss fight in this game, and one of the game's lowest points in my opinion. The Harbinger has the worst mechanics. Remember how annoying knights were in Halo 4 with their teleportation? Now crank that up to 11. Shooting at her with something like a shock rifle or skewer is no easy task thanks to that. Her range attacks are just as ridiculous, stupid blue orbs that detonate when in proximity of the player. which on Heroic will pretty much strip your shields of a single orb. This is made even worse with the fact that between each phase with the Harbinger, you have to fight banished troops. The first and second wave are okay, but the last is just ridiculous and unfair. 2 elites with hitscan weapons, 3 or so skimmers with hitscan weapons, and a goddamn chieftain, one with shields. You have to take out all the hitscan enemies first before the brute comes out, because he is very fast, and while you run away from him, you will get melted by hit scanners. It is a very frustrating example of artificial difficulty. After dealing with the Harbinger, you say your final goodbye to Cortana again. And the game closes in a very open-ended manner thanks to the open world nature of this game. I think this campaign was a big step forward for 343, and they learned a lot of lessons in making a good single-player experience. I only wish that they didn't go down the open world route and instead we got a 12 or even 16-hour linear campaign instead. It would have been more fleshed out and polished, and given more opportunities for the writers to hype up characters such as Escharum, who simply did not have enough time in the limelight. The open world isn't very good. Highly repetitive with only 3 styles of objectives: rescuing marines, shutting down banished facilities, or killing bosses. It adds no replay value whatsoever, and the only reason I did them was so that I could 100% the game, never touching them again. A quick overview of the multiplayer. As of Season 4, I think the game is in a pretty good state. This is exactly how the game should have been released 2 years ago. The gameplay is akin to something like Halo 2 when it comes to sandbox and gunplay. It is not on Halo 3's level of dynamics. The sandbox and environment interactions are way too sterile to even be close. But it is pretty damn fun regardless. I see Mint Blitz and other Australian Halo YouTubers make the claim that the game is very difficult for foreigners to get matches. Perhaps it is skill-based matchmaking on their end, but I also live in a foreign region, not far from Mombasa in East Africa, and I can get into both EU and US servers pretty quickly. I've talked to many Aussie gamers, and apparently there is some sort of corruption with their telecom companies, where they want to force people to use cable TV, and that is why their internet infrastructure is so garbage. I hope things get better one day, and if we shine a light on this, maybe we can see some accountability being taken. The netcode works fine from what I can tell. I haven't experienced bad hit reg or much desync. This game also runs buttery smooth, giving me 100 plus FPS on my RTX 3060. You should definitely get into this game again if you haven't already. The August update kicked ass, and if this is how 343 is gonna move from now on, I'm expecting good things in the future. All in all, Halo Infinite is a pretty good game in 2023. It isn't perfect, but 343 have come a long way. I look forward to the future of this title and the series. Great things are up ahead as long as 343 maintains mutual respect with their fans and community. I've always thought about creating analytical content, and this video is my first true foray into it. I might cover other topics, both Halo and non-Halo. Anyways, until next time.